Welcome to another live Q&A. I am so excited to have some of our lovely recruiters joining us. I'm going to have them introduce themselves in just a second. Before we get started, you are live with us and we're excited to take your questions. I cannot start any of these without, of course, first thanking all of you, our wonderful clinicians who are out there taking care of all of us, all of our patients. I will just start kind of with a little bit of a story. So if you've been joining our lives, you know that I have been out on maternity leave for the past few months. And it's been amazing. This is my second maternity leave, and this is the second time that at the hospital, pretty much all of my nurses were travel nurses. And it was so incredible to have that full circle. The last time I delivered, I was here in San Diego. One of our amazing AMN travelers was my postpartum nurse, and then actually delivered a slightly different location this time. And all of my postpartum nurses, my labor and delivery nurses were all travelers. So just really exciting to see and really awesome to be a part of that. And I, again, can't say thank you enough to all of you. I have been personally impacted and have been taken great care of. And my baby was taken care of very well by so many of you. So just welcome. We're excited to have you. And thank you. Thank you. Before I introduce my two partners here. I am going to also shout out that we do have TravCon coming up. So if you are a seasoned traveler, if you're someone who's just interested or maybe just starting off in your career as a travel nurse, TravCon is a great place for you to go. We partner with our team over there at Gypsy Nurse and have some great booths. There's all kinds of information. I know, Pilar, you went last year, right? Yeah, so maybe we can go ahead and come off mute, Pilar. Tell them how great it is.
It is so good. I went last year. It was definitely days of just like going, but so worth it. Everybody had so much swag. I'm like, it was crazy. People were coming with luggages empty and like just filling them with as many goodies. And it's insane, but it's so fun. I think such a great learning experience for people to go to.
Lots of great information. I know you were talking about the panels that we have. I think AMN was on a couple of panels last year, but just some great information. It's in Vegas, so how much more fun could that be, right? So hopefully you need extra suitcases for all that swag, but also all of your extra winnings from hanging out and having some good times there. So that is coming up September 17th through 19th. Make sure you stop by our booth and say hi. We would love to just meet you in person and give you lots more information about the wonderful world of travel nursing. The other thing I'll highlight really quick is that we do have our Guatemala trip coming up. We will be live streaming again all of the great work that we'll be doing there with our AMN team members, but also so many of our AMN travelers. So be sure, if you're not following us already, to follow us at AMN Nurse, and we'll drop that in the chat so you can make sure you do that and see just how that trip's going and the big impact that's being made. All right. Well, this is a Q&A, so throw those questions in the chat. I do have them coming in. Before I start answering a little bit of the questions that we're getting, Pilar and Julie, I'll have you introduce yourselves. Let's start with you, Julie.
Hello there. My name is Julie Dudziak. I am a senior recruitment manager with AMN. I have been with the company altogether over 20 years. So I've seen a lot of different things as the different travel environments come and go. So it's been quite a ride.
Yes, so we're excited to have you, Julie. You've been through a lot of those cycles of ups and downs, and 20 years has been kind of where we had that pretty big fall too. So we can talk a little bit about that and came out of those moments as well. All right, Pilar, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Pilar. I've been with AMN for about 4 years now. I actually just hit it in August. So kind of made my way across, was working different brands, but officially now with Nurse Choice. So been here now a little over 2 years and just love it.
Love it. And we're so happy to have both of you. I'm very thankful to have both of you on our call today. So we will be talking about some of the ins and outs of contracts. We want to answer any questions that you have. I am starting to get a few questions in the chat. So we'll answer a few of them on the back end, but Marie wanted to know if we have leadership opportunities or only bedside contracts. So these lovely ladies primarily be working those bedside contracts. We're looking really for those RN travel nurse positions. We do have surge tech positions, I know that there one question in here from Val was, is this for nurses only? Primarily, but we do work with surge techs. Julie, I don't know if you, I feel like you've got a few surge techs that you work with pretty regularly. Am I right?
Yeah, for the most part, that's our non-RN roles, although I do work with some LPNs as well. Right now, the market's very tight for sterile processing technicians, but I have worked with a good number of those as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Julie.
Yeah.
Yeah, the needs are out there. And Pilar, I know you work for the in-demand business, so those needs definitely come up as well as hospitals need that additional support in other areas. All right, and then we also have, let's see here, some additional questions. Interested in hospitalist locums opportunities. So that would be a different section of our business. We can help you at AMN Healthcare. I'll have our marketing team throw in some stuff there for you, Cataline. So that way you can get directed to the right place, but we will primarily be focused on those bedside opportunities. We have a LinkedIn user asking where positions are located. Pilar, where do we have positions?
We're everywhere, baby. Yeah, we have positions across the country. You name it, we most likely will be able to find you something there. A lot of people right now too, are looking local. We can absolutely book those type of assignments as well. So really just kind of a absolute realm of what you're looking for in terms of travel assignments.
I love it. Yep. Julie, anything to add?
No, pretty much Pilar said it. Nationwide. Just name where you want to go and we will do our best to get you there.
Yeah, I love it. Good. One of the questions we got was about AMN pay. So I'm going to talk through this. So this particular comment was just on pay in comparison to some other agencies. That does fall in line with what we're talking about here. And maybe, Julie, I'll throw this to you. One of the things I feel like is really important for us to think about with our travelers and the role that we take on as recruiters is really helping them understand why agencies maybe pay a little bit differently. Do you want to go into just a little of, some things to maybe look for when you're comparing apples to apples? Because it's not always apples to apples. It can be apples to oranges or maybe even a grapefruit.
Yeah, I mean, most companies are all going to start from the same point. What I share with my travelers is that at some level between the agency and the facility, they agree on what is called a bill rate, and everything flows from that. And most companies, it's the same across the board. So how that bill rate gets sliced up in terms of direct compensation to the nurse, that's what's going to vary from company to company. So the things you want to watch for, any company that is what I call lowballing the hourly pay in order to put a whole lot more in the tax-free stipends, you should be careful with that, because I've run into travelers who, after the fact, can't qualify for a mortgage or a car loan because the tax-free income doesn't count in your compensation when those banks are looking at qualifying you. So that's one of those red flags you want to watch for. That's one of the biggest ones that will impact your take home, but it's got consequences if you go too low. So you want to be careful with that. And then looking at, what else they offer. Is there insurance? Is there a travel allowance? Are those things part of the package or are they not? And those are just kind of the tip of the iceberg of things to be looking for, but those are the big ones.
Yeah, and that's such a good call out, Julie. I think thinking of insurance, not only our own personal benefits and our own personal medical insurance, but even things like, is your professional liability insurance covered? Sometimes we see with smaller companies, they won't cover that expense for you and you'll be responsible for that. So good questions to ask. You did talk a little bit about bill rate, and we got a question about why don't we as a company necessarily talk through what that hospital bill rate is and what percentage does AMN take? It varies, I will say. The vast majority of the rate does go to our clinician. What I will say here too is that we still have a business to run. So all of those little pieces of the bill rate that AMN would keep would be responsible for all of the people who help you get to your assignments. You've got credentialing, you've got that clinical team that we have 24/7 to support you. So all of those things are wrapped up into what that looks like on the back end. But please rest assured knowing that you as the clinician, we know you're doing the hard work out there. The vast majority does go to you. We have a question about social work opportunities. We don't have those, but one of our other divisions might be able to support in that. Marie's asking about an update on retrogression. I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're asking, Marie, but maybe just on normalization of what we're seeing right now in the market. Pilar, I'll come to you just to talk about maybe the last couple of years and what we've seen. We know that right now we're in a little bit more of a normalizing kind of market. Anything that you would add to that?
I mean, I think it's tried and true, right? We always see an ebb and flow on anything that we have. So I think that a lot of people, I mean, kind of just transitioning, we do like see a lot more people going PRN. We see people going staff. I think that that's just part of it, right? And so there is still such a benefit to travel that, obviously we could delve into, but, I think that there are just different opportunities that people are kind of trying to figure out what works for them right now.
Yeah. Normalization of the market. Julie, I know you've been through at least one of these cycles before. Anything that you would add to what Pilar's saying, or maybe a little different?
Yeah, this one's definitely different. And I think part of it is because facilities are trying to figure out exactly what normal is post-COVID. That was a big deal. We all know that. You guys all know that. You lived through it. But what normal looks like when they're not getting federal funding anymore, and when they're still short-staffed, but they don't have the budgets that they had before. So all of that is kind of settling out. The good news is there's still jobs. The good news is with a company like AMN, we've got great relationships with our facilities. So we will continue to have jobs. It's not like it was I had some gap years when my kids were little. So I missed the really bad one, but I came back right after we were in recovery from it. And This is nothing like that from what I've seen. We definitely still have plenty of jobs.
Yeah. And we know that the need is there. All of you are needed. And I hope you feel that as well. But it is just figuring out what this new normal is. And that's where AMN is really trying to help our facility partners to figure what that looks like too. Antonio, love the comment. Surge techs rock. Surge techs absolutely do rock. And I love that Kimberly is one of our travelers. So that's so great to see you, Kimberly. Thanks for joining us. Michelle, great question. I mean, I think it's something that comes up, and both of our recruiters here handle this a lot, but why can't travelers make the same rate for the same modality? It's very upsetting to find out that other nurses from the same agency is making more than you. I'll maybe start this one off, and then Pilar, I'll come to you, and then Julie would love your follow-up too. I think that this can be looked at as a negative, or it can be looked at as a positive for you. What our recruiters like to find is, what is the most important thing to you? Is it that you're making the most you can in your take home? Is it that you have the highest possible benefits that you can? Julie, what are your kind of thoughts on that? And would you agree?
Yeah, I think it does go case by case, because, we're not going to know what another agency is paying at the same hospital. It's, one of those situations where I can't call them up and say, so what are you paying there? So we rely on you guys to tell us. And sometimes that means we're surprised. But we don't want to lose anybody over the money side of things. So the communication with your recruiter about what you're finding out is critical. So my nurses routinely, if they see the same job at a different agency and it looks like it's more, they'll get me the information and I can help them go through it so we understand why that might be. And if we need to look at what we're offering, we will do that, because we want you guys to feel good about being with us. And, it doesn't feel good if you're seeing something different somewhere else.
I think Julie's making a great point, and Pilar, maybe you have something to add, but it's important to communicate with your recruiter on what you're potentially seeing out there. Sometimes things could be too be too good to be true. And we want to help you understand where the breakdown is, what makes sense. Like I was saying, do some of those other pieces matter? So Pilar, anything to add?
My 2 cents is I tell everybody that, like my travelers, I'm like, transparency for me is the name of the game. Like for me in life, I love transparency. And so like, come to me, like, don't, let's not beat around the bush. Like we both know this is, what we're doing. So like, obviously you're there, you're seeing different pay, like it can happen. One of the best analogies that I heard was, in comparison to like an airplane seat. So like you could be sitting next to somebody, we're all on the same flight, we're all going the same destination, but they could have paid, call it $100 more, whatever it is. So I think that there always is going to be that difference in there, but bring it to me, like bring it to us. We're here to help. Like that's what, we want you to be happy, and that's all we can do in any way that we can.
I love it. Thanks for that, Pilar and Julie. All right. So do we work with California LVNs? Absolutely. If we have the positions, we will definitely work with you, Yashika. Thanks for that question, Kelly, and I'm glad we answered yours for you. It looks like we had a not so great experience with a recruiter. So I'm sorry to hear that. Not sure who you are, LinkedIn user. Definitely bring that stuff to us as well. We are all people. Sometimes we do have bad days, I will say, as much as we try not to. But if it is a relationship that's not working for you, we'd love to maybe hook you up with one of these two lovely ladies and make sure that you have that really great, transparent conversation and feel supported. Great question from David. So 6 months experience as a medical interpreter. Can he apply for a position with us? 6 years as customer service representative. Love that. David, maybe we'll get some more information from our marketing team to drop in here to show you what positions we do have available. This particular group won't work with that experience, but mostly because we don't have positions for exactly that. Thanks for the comment in there, John B. All right, Ola, do we have healthcare recruiting opportunities? If you want to be like one of these incredible people, definitely take a look at our AMN website for all of the career opportunities that we do have available. There's questions, a lot of questions about bill rate that I'm not going to go really too far into. I think if you have specific questions about a particular assignment, definitely talk to your recruiter. Transparency is key. And you heard from both Pilar and Julie that it can vary, and it varies a lot of times depending on what it is that is most important to you. So those benefits, are there reimbursements that you need to have? Is there a certain travel allotment that you feel that you need? Or are you taking housing? Are you not taking housing? Some of those things that's really hard to give you a specific, this is always what we do, because it's not the same. Are there positions to work from home without traveling? We haven't seen a lot of teletherapy positions, at least. Pilar. Oh, you have Pilar. Great.
They do pop up. Usually you have to be in the vicinity of the area. So like, I think sometimes like in the same state or whatever it is, but we do occasionally have those like telehealth type of positions that have come up.
Yeah.
I've got someone on assignment. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Julie. Go.
You go.
Julie has someone on assignment. Go for it.
Yeah, I do. I have someone doing that who's been, but it's really kind of a unicorn assignment. It's not real common, but she's been doing, it's a case management type of role for quite a while. She's managed to stretch it out for quite a while.
Yeah, I love that. So Jessica, I stand corrected. There are teletherapy positions. There's not a ton of them. They're a little bit unique, but maybe more in the future. As we've kind of talked about, hospitals are trying to figure things out. Michelle, I think if you have any additional questions for bill rate things, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to talk to you more. Darlington, can you work in a hospital for more than 1 year as a traveler? So Pilar, I'll maybe go to you first. Can they work in the same place for more than a year?
Absolutely. We do. I have a personal traveler. I think she's been there. I was talking about her this morning. I think she's been there almost 2 years. She's actually transitioning over to be Smith. So it is like a leadership type role. So that was brought up earlier. Those do like within AMN though. But people definitely stay on. You do lose your benefits after you hit your 365. So your package does look a little bit different because you're taxed fully. So there are, again, some differences. But it's an opportunity to, and people go perm after a year. Like there's plenty that happens.
Yeah, definitely. So Darlington, hopefully you heard the full question, just a slight interruption, but yes, you can. Your pay structure looks different because you're not technically a traveler anymore. You're showing that you're staying there for a longer period of time, but we can of course answer any specific questions that you have. A couple of just additional comments here. If you're a LinkedIn user and you're posting, I would love to help you with any questions or issues that you're having. So feel free to reach out. Diane, looking for sterile processing job, but not certified. Julie, anything that you would put there?
Not necessarily. Right now, it's a very tight market for sterile processors, period, certified or not. So that's part of what we're dealing with at the moment. But the certification does not hurt to have. So if it's something you can obtain, I would recommend it, but it's not necessarily going to make a difference right this minute.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that, Julie. And hopefully that answers your question, Diane. So love that John is bringing us back to the topic of just the ins and outs of contracts. So the question here from John is just, what does a good contract look like right now? Maybe I'll start this off, and then Pilar and Julie, I'd love to go to either one of you. But we really are, you're feeling a lot of this normalization as we're getting into more hopefully stable market for all of us, right? And what does a facility look for? What are they, what are they paying? What are some of those pieces? What are the ups and downs? I think what you're seeing now more consistently across the board is that facilities are trying to level out kind of what those bill rates look like coming in, what makes sense, how many clinicians should they have on assignment at one particular time or contingent labor. Julie, Pilar, I'd love to go to you on what your thoughts are. What does a good contract look like right now? Maybe Pilar, I'll go to you first.
I think whatever works for you. So, depending on what you're looking for, like, are you looking, work-life balance? Like, are you looking 36-48? Are you looking closer to home, housing? I think about across the board, though, what we're seeing is contracts, whether you're in California, Iowa, for anywhere across, like, they're about the same. So it kind of, you have to make it work for you. Do you have family that you can go live with and, get free housing? Like, then yes, that one would make sense, or if you're looking right outside of your 50 miles of your home address so that you can get those tax-free benefits. I think it really is just what works for you. And like, what is your bottom dollar? Obviously rates are looking different now. But I always tell everybody right now, like, it has to work for you at the end of the day. Your finances, what would work.
Right. I think what you're talking a little bit to here, Pilar, is that we are seeing rates stabilize. I will say as a whole, rates are still higher than they were in 2019, which is kind of our comparison. We can't really compare where we are today to what things looked like in 2020, 2021, or even just last year in 2022. So we're really comparing against more of that kind of 2019 timeframe. So if you're new to traveling, this probably feels very different than what it's felt like in the past few years. Julie, anything that you would add to that question from John of what a quote unquote good contract looks like?
Yeah, and kind of echoing what Pilar said as well, you need to know why you're traveling, and that's going to, because good is kind of subjective, right? Mm-hmm. So most travelers, they're looking for money or adventure or maybe to build their career in some order, and deciding what order you are prioritizing things is going to make a big difference as far as what is good to you. And I agree with what you said as far as rates are still as high as, if not higher than they were pre-COVID. So that's all good. And then whatever the rest of your goals are, why you're traveling is going to be a big factor into what good means to you.
Yeah. And I think that's a key point, right? So pay is one component of travel nursing, but there's a lot more that goes along with it. So I think asking yourself really, what is the goal for me of traveling? Is it to make the most money that I can? If the answer is yes, am I willing to go where the need is greatest? Because that's typically where the rate is going to be higher. Or am I looking for the highest possible rate, but I'm only looking to be in a very small location or very small area? So those are really important kind of dialogue or questions to have with your nurse recruiter. Great question from Cassandra. Can you explain the difference between travel contracts versus seasonal? So I think they're a little bit one and the same, but we are coming up to the winter season, and we know a lot of our hospitals and facility partners are starting to give us those needs. Julie, do you want to talk a little bit about what happens in the winter time versus just kind of your regular run-of-the-mill contract that happens through the rest of the year?
Sure. I mean, everything really in the hospital world, and you guys probably know this, is census driven. So the more patients in the hospital, the more help they need, and it goes from there. So historically, the winter time's been the very busiest time for travel nurses because that's when the census is growing. And the past 3 years, it's been different because the census was high all the time. But this year, we're starting to see all of that normalize. So in the summertime, we started to see census drop. We're expecting that it's going to rise just like it always does in winter, but in a more kind of normal cycle than it has been over the last 3 years.
Yeah, great. Pilar, anything that you would add there?
I mean, I think it's tried and true every year that just like what Julie said, it's going to, census rises. Usually that means, I don't know what that means this year. I wish I had a crystal ball, but, typically a rate increase. But, again, we don't know where things are heading and like with everything normalizing. But it is, tried and true thing. We're going to get winter orders. We're going to, see census rise, and that's it.
Go from there. Yep, exactly. Lots of questions. Thank you for that, both Pilar and Julie. Lots of questions on the international nursing process. I know our international team does a very similar Q&A, so we'll make sure our marketing team can drop that into our chat so that you can get directed to the right place. Some additional questions on just one from Iran. Did AMN get FEMA contracts? We did support FEMA way back when. That feels like an eternity ago at this point, but nothing new. Akon, I'm glad that a little bit of this was insightful. And then Vinay, when travelers are extending contracts, do 13 weeks instead of 4 weeks, 6 weeks, just talking about rates. Also, does experience count? So maybe I'll rephrase this question for you, Julie. Does experience count for rates when it comes to travel nursing?
Not so much for rates. It will help you get the job. So if you are up against several different candidates and you've got the most experience, you're the most likely to get the job. So it helps from that standpoint. But for rates themselves, it's pretty much the same across the board. All packages are customized. Every contract I do for someone, I'm taking into consideration their particular situation. So it's customized from that standpoint, but the starting point is pretty much the same across the board for each individual contract.
Yeah. So definitely a great point, Julie. It helps you to get the position. And we, as your recruiters, want to make sure that we're touting all of that experience so that you are the best possible candidate for that facility or that hospital. Pilar, when it comes to the extension piece, I think what Vinay is asking is we're looking more for those 13-week extensions as opposed to maybe just 4 or 6. Any insight onto why that would be?
I mean, I think it really varies by facility. Again, I mean, I just this week today I had a 6-week extension. I've had 4-week extensions. I think it's really just based off of what they're looking for. Again, varies by facility, varies what you're looking for. If you're only able to extend, 6 weeks, like for childcare purposes or something, I feel like they do try to take that into account. And I think the main portion of that is having that conversation with your nurse manager or whoever you're talking to about extending with is, transparency. Tell them, this is why I can only do X number of weeks. Or, if we do get a 13-week extension offer, if you want to put time off in, like those are all things that, again, just talking with your recruiter, talking with your nurse manager about what we can get approved that way.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for that, Pilar. And there was a question just about the compensation component. Keep in mind that does come from the facility. If they're going to repost your position or they have to backfill your position that you're now vacating, they'll be looking for a clinician to come in at that new rate. So those are all things to bring up to your recruiter so that you can have dialogue about it. a lot of these things are very case by case. I do know that we're kind of at our time, but before we jump off, I feel like we've had some good dialogue on just things to look for with contracts. And Pilar and Julie, I know you both had some really good kind of insight or things that you would recommend that your clinicians are looking for when they're comparing other travel contracts. Julie, you had talked a little bit about, what does the insurance piece look like? What are those other components that you need? Anything else that you would say is really important for a clinician to look for in a contract when they're being presented something or a potential travel assignment?
I think with all contracts, you just have to ask lots of questions. Make sure you understand what's important to you. Do as best you can to find out about the job, because so many of them are being offered off of profiles now. So your recruiter can usually get you some information about the job itself. So it's mostly that, figuring out what's important to you and making sure you're asking the questions so that you feel good about accepting the job if it's offered.
Yeah. Perfect. Pilar, anything to add?
I mean, my 2 cents, actually, we were talking about it earlier today, is kind of just like the benefits of what AMN has to offer. I think, for us, we have like 401k options. We offer travel, like you can go into company housing. I think that there's just so much that we have to offer that if you just have that conversation with your recruiter, again, telling them what you're looking for and, what we have to offer, I think we're just the best choice.
Thank you for that, Pilar. So yeah, I think looking beyond just what that one particular contract has, is longevity something that's important to you? We've talked about it in a lot of our other lives, but just want to put another point on it here is that you want what's best for you mentally, emotionally, physically, to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. So what do those hours worked look like? What's the long-term goal for you? What does retirement eventually look like? And how are you planning for some of those things? We love to be able to support you where we can. As AMN travelers, we do provide our employee assistance program with free counseling sessions to support really all of these things. We were talking about taxes earlier. Really important, I think, to have a tax professional that understands travel nurse taxes, because it does look very different. If you're working in different states across the country, we all have different tax forums. And I know here in the state of California, it can be a little crazy. So definitely recommend some of those things. There's some great dialogue in the chat just on what rates look like. And I think Kay Good and John B, you're experiencing what we're all feeling. It's not a secret that things have gotten more expensive. We're looking at how to normalize and get ourselves in a place where we're taking care of ourselves. Our clients have the clinicians that they need to support patient care. I don't think that it's a surprise or anything that we would completely stray away from having a conversation on, but happy to answer any questions. You have my information there. Feel free to reach out if you do want to have additional dialogue or if there's some specific questions that I can answer for you. But hopefully you got something from this 35 minutes that we've been together. I think big kind of end note here is that if you have questions about your contract, don't be afraid to ask your recruiter to look and compare with you. I think Pilar, both you and Julie said that if you have a clinician that comes to you and they have a better contract that's paying more and that's what's most important to them, we're happy to have them do what's best for them. So just making sure that you're being really transparent in those conversations with us. We'll do the same thing back for you. Julie, any last remarks before we close it out here?
I think you covered it. One thing I wanted to piggyback onto that, the employee assistance program, I'm really proud that we have that. We actually beefed that up in the midst of COVID because we saw how important it was to support our nurses during that time frame. And that support hasn't gone away. It's still there. It's a hard job, and you guys are doing all the heavy lifting. So we're happy to be there for you and to offer the support and help you with what you want to achieve for yourself through your career and your life.
Yeah. Thanks, Julie. Pilar, anything on top of what Julie just said there?
Well, I mean, thank you to our nurses. You guys are amazing. And two, I mean, I just try to fully support, everybody that I work with. I think all of my teammates, all of us are, we all have the same goal as, we want to provide the best patient care that we can because of you guys. So, just thank you. We're so grateful, I think, on, just things that we've all experienced in our lives, conversations that I've had with my nurses that I work with, and, just trying to be as supportive as we can. And I think that is just all the way around. I love my nurses that I work with, and I just, can't sing our praises enough.
Yeah.
Your praises.
Yeah, their praises. Yeah, all of you are just incredible. We're so, so thankful for you. Like I started this half hour out, I've been personally impacted by so many of you. So thank you so much. Uzo, we're going to wrap it here, but if you have additional questions on the health insurance piece, feel free to reach out to me specifically or to your recruiter. They're happy to answer some of those questions for you too. But we'll wrap it up just on that note. Thank you all so much. Please join us again. I love getting all these questions for our next Q&A. And if there's anything you want to know ahead of time, feel free to reach out and DM us specifically at AMN Nurse so that we can start the conversation off next time. But thank you to all of you. And thank you to my presenters, Pilar and Julie. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.